I don't know about you guys, but for whatever reason, X, the app, seems to only show me posts calling pretty much everything I like slop or garbage. It's like it knows what I like, which we all know it does because you can go into your settings and you can see what it labels as your interest. But okay, so it knows I'm interested in this, but it only wants to show me the things I like getting trashed. Or maybe that's just the only thing that blows up, That could be possible too. Really, I assume, they just want to show me shit that pisses me off so I become inclined to go in and respond, which I can't lie. I'll be on X arguing with people all the time, just for the love of the game. But can we stop kidding ourselves, man? This movie looks like it's gonna be badass. There's a lot of people saying it looks like AI or that it's like indistinguishable from AI or that the Russos actually did use AI to like make the script and, all this forced just false info. But it's false info, but it spreads like crazy and it has no basis in fact. And I guess it really doesn't even have to. And if you're one of those people, man, I just don't understand the point. I'm assuming you're going to be seated opening night if you can, just like the rest of us anyway. But to spread this dog shit is just like, for what? For engagement? Maybe you want to be interesting. I'm not saying everyone has to love this movie or be excited for it at all. But, I've just seen the same shit get repeated over and over again to the point where it's just embarrassing that people even engage with posts like these, because the movie hasn't even come out yet. You're criticizing probably unfinished CGI and a plot to a movie that nobody has seen. I mean, you have no idea what's going to happen in this movie, but you're already calling the dialogue garbage. And, another thing about the CGI is that a lot of the times, as we know, these Marvel movies, the trailers don't show us everything. For all we know, like there was a leak, this trailer kind of got leaked or some parts of it got leaked already in a different scene. And the part that a lot of people use to shit on the trailer with Doom standing there with the Sentinels behind him, they say it looks really dark or whatever, or that, I don't know, they just say the CGI looks like crap. In the actual leak, you can see a whole planet, probably because maybe, it's an incursion going on. You can see a whole planet behind him and it actually looks a lot brighter. I mean, that's just one thing. I'm not going to go in and debunk every scene, like who cares? It just bothers me because it's the same every time. Because how it seems to work is one sort of criticism blows up and gets a lot of engagement, and then someone sees that and literally copies the exact same criticism, and it all just becomes for engagement baiting, and it works, which is crazy. But believe me, man, this is 100% just a little bubble on X that just hates everything. In my opinion, these people need to stick to just reading comic books instead of pretending like they're film experts, bro, because not just this bubble. A lot of people like to compare to the comics and stuff, but what I always say is we're not dealing with comic books. We're dealing with films, obviously. And everyone on X is suddenly a director, a screenwriter, a special effects artist, a film critic. It's actually pretty fascinating. Thinking this movie is garbage, it doesn't make you interesting. Saying the CGI looks bad, it doesn't make you intelligent. When the movie comes out, any valid criticisms are free game. And I'm not saying otherwise. I'm not even saying only criticisms I agree with are valid. I don't, benefit from the movie being good or bad. I just talk about whatever the reality of the situation is. But it's just that in this case, we're talking about two almost identical, exactly the same trailers. Both seem to be taking place in the same fight, in the same scene, as in, the trailers aren't showing us really anything outside of this fight with the Sentinels and the X-Men, which will probably be, I'm assuming, the end of Act 1. And another thing is you'll also see a lot of people hating on Doom's accent, which sure, I mean, I think it's fine. It's the first, it's like the first actual live action Doom that has had an accent. I don't remember if that extremely old Fantastic Four movie, if that Doom had an accent. That doesn't matter. I'm talking about movies that matter that, people have actually seen. Everyone's been begging for Doom to have an accent and just to be comic accurate. And we have that now. And it just doesn't make sense why we're going to shit. How long are we going to shit on the casting? Bro, we're 2-3 years past that. I mean, yes, RDJ is Doom. And bro, you know what? It sounds good to me. And what I like is that they have a lot of aura farming, man. But whatever. Okay, we're not talking about my thoughts on that. Obviously, I thought the trailer was dope. It's going to be amazing. Another thing people are upset about when it comes to Doom is him having no setup. What I would say is, outside of Marvel, which movie makes you watch another movie for some sort of setup for the villain, right? Movies introduce villains, in their movie, in a single movie. That happens all the time. I mean, this is just like no shit obvious stuff I'm saying. But then what's the big deal? You think about Thanos, and a lot of people are giving Feige shit for saying Thanos had no setup, which, I get it. I don't think Thanos had no setup, but let me say this. He was correct. He was, I'd say, 85% correct, because all of Thanos' appearances prior to Infinity War War were super basic. And if you had no idea who he was from the comics and you had no prior knowledge going into his appearances, you'd be like, if you're a casual, just general audience, you'd be like, who the fuck is this? Why do they keep showing me this guy? And the Infinity Stones, they were sort of a build up, right? I will concede that if you already know about Marvel outside of the movies, you knew exactly where that was going. But with that same logic, if you know the comics, you knew that this multiverse saga would end in Secret Wars. And, not only if you knew that from the comics, Marvel themselves, even, within the Kang Dynasty days when that was going to happen, they already announced Secret Wars was coming after Kang Dynasty. So if you know the comics, you understand there's no way they were going to do that without Doom anyway. Unless you believe they were going to have Kang be the sole villain and have no Doom for Secret Wars, which I just find hard to believe because, that's almost like having the Infinity Saga without Thanos. The way I see it is Doomsday is the buildup. That is our buildup for Secret Wars, for Doom to be the main villain in Secret Wars as well. It's not like Doom is a one-off villain in Doomsday. And believe me, would I have liked to have had Doom in the universe years ago? Of course. I would have loved to see him be kind of more normal because he comes off as very powerful, obviously, in these trailers. If he was just normal and, just a base level Doom, and then maybe here and there we see him becoming more powerful and powerful behind the scenes, that is ideal. I don't think that ruins the movie or ruins Doom. I don't think it's super important that he had 5 movies of buildup. And you have to understand, in reality, this was a pivot. Just outside of storylines, this was a pivot from Kang, which, bro, that was a good move. It's almost like everything happened for a reason. I really feel for Jonathan Majors. He was innocent in that situation, and he did not deserve to go through all the shit he went through. But, bro, Kang was, man, that shit was failing. The Marvel Universe was dog shit, okay? Not solely because of him, but he was not going to save anything. I think Doom, this whole pivot that they've done, and you can even see it in the quality of film, the type of movies, the TV shows that they're canceling, which at this point is all of them, besides Daredevil. They have really done a good job at course correcting as far as we know. We'll see what happens after Secret Wars. We don't want to just assume. They could easily, once they get us all back in with Doomsday and Secret Wars, make it badass, all this, and maybe they just go back to shitting on us when the X-Men comes out, right? I don't want to believe that's what's going to happen. They were not making a lot of money, and they are already making a shit ton of money right now. They've already made way more money than the last few years, bro, just off Spider-Man, you know what I mean? And I've seen the term Marvel slop a lot lately, and it's just funny because, we're talking about the biggest movies in the world. You look at the numbers Spider-Man's doing as we speak, and they're already saying Doomsday's on track to potentially make even more money than that. And, I don't think it's, just because a movie makes money that it's good. Of course not. But it's like the fact that these movies are so big and anticipated, it becomes a target to what is seemingly a growing community online. And of course, I'm sure, there's been people that have hated whatever's popular. There's always those kind of people. But I don't know, during Infinity War, just that whole thing, it seemed like everything I saw online was positive, and rightfully so. That was just an amazing time to be a fan of Marvel. But right now, there's like different sides to it as well. You have like the Nerdrotic and friends, those viewers who just hate everything Marvel, which I at least can understand to a degree. I think since Endgame, with only a few exceptions, being No Way Home, and then pretty much just Thunderbolts, Fantastic Four, and then now Spider-Man, everything Marvel, besides those, everything Marvel has put out has been garbage and catering. And they were catering to the absolute worst people when it comes to this franchise. And then you have the other side who just call everything AI, and these are the ones that are suddenly film experts, directors, and the scriptwriters of Twitter. And maybe I have a feeling that these people would not be so upset if we pivoted over to Doom. Like, I cannot explain it, but for some reason, I feel like these people would be hyping this shit up if it was still Captain Marvel leading if she were to have led the charge, no Steve Rogers, maybe no Thor, or maybe Thor dying, whatever, no RDJ. If you know, okay? There are these different sides, right? It's the ones, really, I'm gonna say it, bro. It's the ones that Marvel was catering to. I think, they're just upset that they're not being catered to anymore, and they literally cannot fathom why. They're gonna blame racism, sexism, they're gonna blame chuds. You know what I mean? These are, in my opinion, that is just a stupid crowd of people. And then, maybe a lot of these people, I say that they're fans of the old Marvel, or, this dog shit Marvel, but maybe a lot of them are just DC fans, which, I understand. If I was picking a side and my side was DC, I'd be in shambles right now. That universe is absolute garbage right now. But let me know what you guys think, man. Am I just a victim to the algorithm? Like I said earlier, sometimes I feel like maybe the algorithm just wants to show me things that piss me off, because that's going to get the most engagement? Or is it just cool to hate Marvel now? Yeah, maybe a little bit of both, man. Either way, thank you for watching the video, bro. Have a good day, man. Peace.